Yo, what is going on, guys? It's Miguel here. So today we're coming at you with a video on where you should be door knocking in 2026. Okay, so if you guys never been here before, of course, my name is Miguel. I'm a licensed real estate agent out in London, Ontario, Canada. I've been selling. I just completed, because we're in Happy New Year. We're in 2026. I just completed my third full year in real estate. I have established a team, and I have built my entire business out from door knocking. Okay, so again, if you guys are really heavy into door knocking, check out my channel. Like, I've got everything pretty well on door knocking. I just go right into detail. If you guys have been here for a little bit, you guys would know I don't really hide anything or put anything behind like a paywall. It's pretty well all my, knowledge just coming out. Okay, so yeah. So anyways, I'm on. I took a 2-week break for because I'm here in Canada. Okay. Again, so I need a bit of a new camera setup here. It might be a little bit crooked, but I'm sure I'm in frame okay. Basically, I just took a little bit of a break for the new year. Here in Canada, anyways, our season tends to die out about like third week of December, and I can take those 2 weeks off. If you are in the States, you probably had your prospecting done on the New Year's Day because you have a lot of expireds, right? So we don't have that here. I can fortunately take a bit of a break and just go right into it starting on the 5th of January, okay? So, but yeah, anywho, we're going to get into, there's 3 things I want to cover. Okay, and I'm going to explain why I'm making a video on this. So the 3 topics are really going to be setting up a farm area, okay, and what area knowledge you kind of need around setting up your farm area and targeted area. We're going to discuss a little bit on FSBO, for sale by owner and expired listings, as well as just sold. I'll touch on that as well. I am in Canada, so those are going to be a bit different topics, but I'll explain. Market conditions, we're going to touch on why certain market conditions can affect where you're going to go door knocking. And finally, we're going to do planning ahead, as well as where you can door knock, which is pretty well anywhere, okay? So we're going to start off with the farming aspect, okay? So, yeah, I think I want to start with farming. So when it comes to farming, okay, so if you are door knocking, okay, if you want to create a little bit more targeted approach as opposed to just going from A to B to C like all the time and getting stuck in the analysis paralysis, which you don't want to happen, we'll cover that in section 4. But when you're door knocking, you want to have a farm area. Okay, so if you never heard of what a farm area is, you should, but I'm just going to touch on it real quick. Your farm area is your area that you should be known as the expert in, okay? This is the area that you want to keep revisiting and make it so that you're the realtor of choice, right? You want to make it so that anyone in that neighborhood, when they think of real estate, boom, immediately you're the person that they want to go to, okay? So when you're selecting your farm area, we're going to talk about like how often you should go, but like how to select your farm area. So we'll start out with figuring out where your farm area is going to be, okay? So I'll kind of explain like where you should. So basically your turnover is like the main consideration, okay? So you want to count if you want to find out what turnover is, it's the percentage of homes that have basically sold, right? You can count listed as well, because that's talking about who's actually raised their hand to put their home up for sale. I take in who's listed their home and who has sold their home, right? So if you really want to go deep into it, take a look at some areas, right, that have a lot of sold homes, there's a lot of listed. Count the neighborhoods. It might take you a little bit, but count all the rooftops. You can use like something like Geo Warehouse. We in Canada have something called Geo Warehouse. You can use something called Geo Warehouse to count out all the homes in the area, right? You can count like the rooftops, write that down, and then when you go on your MLS, take in the actives and the solds throughout that year, okay, from the last 365 days. When you count that, so let's say for example, there's 1,000 rooftops in a neighborhood, and there's been 100 homes that have turned over. Okay, that means that area has a 10% turnover, which is really good. So your target turnover should be anywhere between 5 to 7%. Okay, mine over in Summerside. So I'll just tell you about my neighborhood that I farm here in London. So I really target a neighborhood called Summerside. Okay, and I'll explain why I target this area. Number one, there's a very high turnover rate, right? The last 3 years, there's been pretty well a 10%, very close to a 10% turnover. Well, when I first did it, right? Now that I know the area well, I don't really have to focus on it too much unless I notice activity's dying down, which is not. But when I first went into it, it was like an 8.7%, right around that number, okay? That's very healthy for me to go to. But the bigger thing I really take into consideration, because every neighborhood has homes selling right now, right? At least in my city of London, Ontario. But you really want to take in the demographic as well as what's happening in the area. So I'll talk about this is going to be like in terms of like new construction, amenities going up, things that might ultimately either entice people to invest in the area, and also at the same time have people who want to move out of the area. Okay, so I'll talk about Summerside a little bit. So basically, Summerside's like you know, you have like your square area, right? This one's like a literal square, right? It's like a rectangle, right? And all around this rectangle is all new construction. There's all, like, it's all torn up, like it's all new construction. Even in the neighborhood, there's a lot of new construction, but on all four quadrants, minus, no, even this side, sorry, there's like a freeway highway here, but there's like a piece of field there that's all brand new townhomes that still need to have people moving in. They're still selling them. This quadrant here is all being built. Like it's a forest, but there's a section where there's a bunch of new homes being built. Over on this side is there's people already living in there, but that whole section is going to be like an entire subdivision. And at the end of this year, or like early 2027 is I've been keeping an eye on it because you have to, but early 2027 is when everything's going to be fully done and everything's going to move in. And then on the south end is again stacked townhomes. Like it's like covering people's homes and everything. So and I've sold a lot of homes in that area. So I'll just touch on like why that's important to know, because that's going to be throwing a lot of people out who have enjoyed having the privacy of living there because the area has changed so much, right? You're following? And the other side of it too is that's going to drive a lot of people in. So in my city of London, Ontario, I have a lot of people from Toronto because I'm close to 2 hours out from Toronto, and I'm also about 2 hours out from Detroit. So we're kind of like a center hub. Like London, Ontario is like a really big place for people to come invest. And we've had, over the last 5 years, we've had a lot of people from Toronto moving to our city because of the remote situation. Now, the reason why Summerside is so effective is because there's a highway, right? We're like, it's like connected to the highway. So a lot of these people from Toronto, every single time I've sold a home in Summerside, it has been sold to a Toronto person. I even go as far as telling people when I list the home is that your home is going to be sold to a Toronto real estate agent. Just want to let you know. And literally that's what happens. Every single showing is from a Toronto realtor. Outside of maybe when I sell in some of the courts, I get some people that are like from the city or trying to jump ropes in the area. But outside of that, it's all people coming in. Those are firm indicators that I need to stay in the area. Well, why is that? Well, because these people who have been there for so long are trying to move out, and there's a high demographic that wants to move there, right? There's a high demand to move into there from people who actually have the money to buy. Okay, so those two are something to take into consideration. The other side of it too is how old are the homes, right? Your sweet spot for finding neighborhoods, if you guys just want to make it super simple and water down your search so you don't have to be scrolling through a bunch of neighborhoods in the MLS, 6 to 15 years. Okay, at least at this point in time, 6 to 15 years is the absolute sweet spot, right? Because people who bought in 2019, well, 6-7 years further ahead now, they bought their home for almost half of what it's worth now. Even though market conditions have shifted, these people are still up way high in equity, and a lot of the new construction is throwing a lot of people out. So you want to look at 6 to 15, as well as in my neighborhood, in my city anyways, 6 to 15 years and 15 to 30 years is pretty typical for a lot of these neighborhoods, right? Because you're going to have some of the older pockets that have already have a little bit established, maybe in the late mid 90s, maybe early 2000s, but are still building around, right? You want to look, so basically in short, if you really want to water it down and make it simple, look for these homes that have been built between 6 to 15 years and 15 to 30 years. Or I think it's like 16 to 30, sorry, on my MLS is what it is. But anyways, you want to stick in that range, but your 6 to 15 is that sweet spot because people are going to want to move roughly on average about every 7 years. So the age for me is the most important, but also what's taking place outside of that. Okay. And then we can also go into, like, we'll talk, I think when I get to the third section, when I talk about knocking anywhere is where you also want to take into consideration how sellable that price point is. I'm not going to touch on that too much just yet until I get to the knock anywhere, but basically you want to take into consideration when you're farming a neighborhood, how sellable is it and where is that individual going to be moving to if they are selling, right? Are they going to sell and just relocate entirely, or are they going to sell and go to another home, which obviously you would know gives you a full-on opportunity to have two ends for sure, which is going to be more financially beneficial for you. Okay. So basically when you're making your farm area, guys, that's number one. When you're making your farm area, have those things on top of mind. But the main thing for me is just knowing the age of the homes as well as what's taking place around there, right? And again, knowing the demographic, like if there's a lot of empty nesters too. I didn't really touch too much on like specific demographic, but if you know that there's a lot of empty nesters, like a lot of people have moved, like a lot of the kids have moved out because a lot of these people have owned since like the early 2000s. Well, guess what? There's probably going to be a lot of people who are looking to downsize or at least make a shift out of the area, okay? So that's what you want to consider when you're making your farm area, right? How often do you want to visit your farm area? So when you're starting, you want to just loop it as much as you can. Not to the point where you're annoying, but you want to loop it. My general rule of thumb for the first 2 years is loop it once a quarter, okay? So try to go through your whole neighborhood and meet as many people as you possibly can once a quarter. So my goal in Summerside is I want to meet every single, I know there's like some homes I can't meet because maybe they have, for me, I personally respect the no soliciting sign. And, you know, you can kind of tell if it's like just newly put out. That's a different topic for another video, but I'm going to have more than likely a chance to meet about 85% of the people in that neighborhood, right? So my goal when I'm using my map is to meet the people who either expressed to me maybe a year or two ago that they weren't interested and maybe their plans have changed, because obviously things can change, but also meet some people who I haven't met yet. Okay. My goal in theory is to meet 85% of the people, not so much having a goal of converting a certain number of people. It's just a matter of meeting a certain number of the people who now know my name, and now when they think of real estate, they're thinking of me. Okay, does that make sense? So again, if you're new, for the first 2 years, loop that neighborhood once a quarter. Okay, now I go not bi-weekly, sorry, biannually. Okay, I go twice a year, right? That way I'm trying to get the remaining people I maybe haven't met yet, or these people maybe I met 2 years ago that still might have plans but have expressed previously to me that they didn't have any plans at the time, because obviously things can change and people can, things can happen to people. Okay, so the second thing, so that's the thing on farming. Okay, I think that's your biggest thing, especially if you live in Canada like me, just having a targeted area that can feed you over time, because now that area provides me at least with one deal every quarter. Okay, in short, that's 4 deals a year. It's not huge, right? I'm still building that farm area, but having a certain deal that's either just a sell or a sell and buy once a quarter is awesome, right? I can fully guarantee that's going to come, and that's something that I know is guaranteed going to pay me out for the year. Okay. The second thing we're going to take a look at is for sale by owner, expires, and just sold. So just giving you guys an output on this, I do live in Canada. I cannot go to expired listings. However, there's some things I can tell you to do that can help you to go to expired listings if you live in Canada. But again, if you do live in the States, you should be hammering expireds like crazy. Like, I mean, that is such like a cream of the crop lead source. I wish I had that like you guys did, but I don't. Like, I can't just go out and, hit expires all day and then get like 100 sales in a year, right? It's kind of a slower burn process for us in Canada, because we have to hit more numbers and it's a bit of a less targeted approach. But doing these things, like I told you, is going to help you make that more targeted approach by circling on certain things. But again, if you're in the States, hammer expires, right? Just go to the expireds, boom. If you're in Canada, we can't directly knock on expireds. So I'll tell you guys what I was doing for a little bit. I would pinpoint a neighborhood that had a lot of expireds. So I would kind of look at an area that would A, have high turnover, but B, have a lot of expireds in the neighborhood that were owner occupied. Okay. So I look at that and keep a mental whereabouts on like maybe a map or something of where these expireds were, right? Even House Sigma kind of tells you that, but it's good to know where they are when you're knocking around the area, because when you can see this on a map, this is part of your planning process, right? But if you're in Canada, right, and you want to try to knock as many in that neighborhood while also trying to hit expireds or suspendeds, cancels, whatever you want to call it, those are all the ones you want to be looking at, by the way, that didn't relist. You want to take an inventory, a mental inventory, and a note of how many are in that area, because then you can knock that whole area. Instead of just going like drive from one A to B, you're just going to waste a lot of time. You're going to be staying in a neighborhood where you're still getting all the neighbors, and you're also getting the expireds as you go through. Does that make sense? Right? So again, while we cannot directly go to expireds or canceled and like solicit them that way, we can have a mental whereabouts of where they are in that neighborhood and canvas the rest of the area. That is 100% legal to do, okay? Now, I'm not telling you to target them, right? But you're keeping a mental inventory of where they are, and you're hitting areas where they're heavily in there. So if you're in Canada, you really want to benefit off the expired listings, go to some of those areas that have that high turnover for the cancel expires. Again, you have to go on your MLS for this, but go through that and take a mental inventory note of what's there, okay? The other thing you can do is for sale by owners, and for me personally, I don't do for sale by owners. Like, they might be a really good lead source in your market. For me, I tried hammering them for about a year and a half. I just had no success. I got 2 clients that had both ends to buy and sell. Literally the worst clients I ever worked with. I wouldn't do it again. So I've personally just put for sale by owners out. They're not part of my lead generation sources. But if you guys want to do for sale by owners, make sure, especially if you're in the States, you can take a map of them through like Redx and stuff like that. In Canada, we don't have that. We have to go to like Marketplace and stuff like that. It's just so not worth it, right? But if you have the ability and you want to start doing for sale by owners, start targeting them and just go around the city knocking them. But again, if you want to create the best strategy to get more contacts in so you don't waste a lot of time, knock the rest of the street as well when you go see those for sale by owners, okay? Again, I'm not going to touch too heavily on them, but again, it's pretty straightforward. If you want to hit for sale by owners, and again, same thing with expireds if you're in the States and you want to leverage your time door knocking, hit the rest of the street, right? The other thing is just sold, okay? So for me, I don't do just sold. It might be beneficial for you to do just sold in your, like from someone who, in your office who just sold if you're new. And then you only want to do it though if it's a neighborhood that's going to make sense, okay? So let's say for me personally, like I'll just give you guys my insights, because I think it's just easier for me to explain when I give you my insights on it. So whenever I sell a listing personally in a neighborhood that I feel like it makes sense for me to go, I will print 100 postcards and I'll just hammer a bunch of doors till I get rid of all those postcards, right, around that listing. So I will do just solds around there just to let the neighbors know, hey, I just sold a home. This is what we got for it. Here's the activity. Do you have any interest to buy or sell? Like that's basically the short of it, right? I'm not going to give you guys a whole script right now. But basically the just sold aspect for me is whenever I sell a listing, okay, that's in a very sellable area, I'll get my assistant to print out 100 postcards with some stats on the back. And then I'll take those and then I'll go canvas that area until I run dry, okay? Now I only do that for neighborhoods that I feel like it makes sense for me to go, right? The other side of it where I'm not going to make do with it is if it's in a neighborhood I really don't care to be in. I think that's a bad way to put it. Like let's just say maybe it's an area that's a little bit sketchier and like I don't really want to be soliciting that area, or maybe it's on a main road, right? Or maybe it's an investment property, right? And it doesn't make sense because there's a lot of rentals around there, or maybe it's on a main road. I don't want to be door knocking on a main road because it's too loud. I'm not going to choose to do it just sold there, right? I'm just going to carry on with my business, staying in my farm areas and going to other areas, okay? But if you want to do just sold, you can do this for someone in your office, like another listing, or even like it could even be for somebody else, right? You don't have to like specifically say, oh, 123 Main Street just sold, right? You can be like, hey, you can go to some of these areas where you're noticing a lot of homes sell, right? Again, it kind of goes down to the turnover, but you go to some of these areas where you see a lot of homes that just sold, it tells you the area is pretty hot at that time, and you can give some value to the homeowners that are there, especially in these softer markets, okay? So again, if you just sold a listing, to summarize that in a nutshell, if you just sold a listing and you want to let the neighbors know and it's an area that you feel like it would be worth your while going to, print 100 postcards and just hammer those doors, okay? If it's an area that doesn't make sense for you to go to because it's like a bunch of multifamily homes, there's a bunch of townhomes that's like a rental community, probably don't go there, right? Just actually, I'm not even gonna say probably, do not go there, right? You want to focus on getting the people who are going to be listing their home, who also have the chance to buy, okay? So in short, that's what I'm going to give you guys for just sold. And then if you don't have a listing you just sold personally, just take a look at some, maybe something that a few listings that just sold in the last, I don't know, three to 4 weeks. And then if there's a lot in a certain neighborhood, go to that area and just start knocking the streets that have the just solds, right? So the next thing, so moving on, I'm going to talk about, we're going to touch on market conditions, okay? So this is kind of something that I'm bringing into the loop right now. And the reason why I want to touch on market conditions is it kind of goes to the whole farming apparatus, okay? So what I was just telling you guys about farming, you still want to keep your farming area regardless, right? But when it comes to the whole farming thing, like when you focus on it, it's like, okay, how much turnover, which is a big one, right? But also like demographic, right? Who's moving in and out and blah, 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 okay? Now, as the market shifts, right, as it starts to slow down a little bit, what we've seen, at least in Canada this year for sure, is there's only really motivated people who are working with us in today's market. The other side of it too is those are the only people who are actually selling in today's market. Okay, so what I'm trying to get to is when you go to certain areas, again, you want to keep your farm area because that's going to be giving you fruit for life. Okay, you want to make sure you have a name established in some sort of area, right? But I think sometimes that can get stuck in your head where when you go knock on other areas, we're like, okay, I have to go to an area that maybe has 6 to 15 years, like I was just saying, right? And then just stick my efforts in there. Yes, you want to do that, but again, with current market conditions, you also have to consider, like if you're trying to knock outside of your farm area, which you're going to have to from time to time, right? For a lot of the time, if you're going to a different area, keep in mind who has to sell right now. Okay, so who has to sell right now? It's going to be downsizers, okay? So downsizers need to sell right now. Upsizers, as much as they might want to right now, and some of them definitely do have a strong desire and will transact with you, you don't want to get stuck with someone who puts their home up for sale and they're just testing the waters and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, maybe this isn't for me, and then you're out both time and money, okay? You want to consider current market trends with popular seller demographic, and that's going to be downsizers. But the other side of that, on top of who needs to sell, is how sellable is that price point, okay? Let me give you guys another example of what I'm doing right now, okay? So when I'm not in my farm area, I'm going to some areas, more so in the south and the north end, but I'm targeting these neighborhoods that have a right around the average sales price, maybe just a little bit lower, as well as these neighborhoods that might have a lot of downsides, or a lot of like owner occupied homes that these people have been here for a while. Okay, because when I catch those people, maybe they don't have to sell right away, but I know after a certain amount of doors, I'm gonna hit someone who needs to sell in the next 6 months. Needs to sell is the main thing with that. Okay, so on top of visiting my farm area a couple times a year, when I'm not doing that, guys, I need to door knock somewhere else. And that's gonna be around where I feel like the market is in demand. And that's gonna be with downsizers in a very sellable price point. So, because keep in mind, right? Whenever that person needs to sell, as the market begins to soften, guess what? You got yourself a very sellable listing with someone who absolutely needs to sell. And that is exactly what you want right now, okay? So again, when you are door knocking outside of your farm area, outside of your target area, because again, don't get that mixed up. You want to still keep your farm area, right? And get your name out there. So you're the expert of choice. The expert of choice, I guess. Yeah, the area expert when it comes to real estate. When you're focusing your efforts elsewhere, when you're already done with your farm area, you keep it towards market trends, right? Like what's actually going to sell and what you need to actually be focused on, which for me right now in my market is people who are downsizing in a sellable price point, okay? And the average price point in my city right now is just over $600,000. Excellent price point, right? But again, that makes me to believe I need to stay in about the mid fives, okay? That's going to work it has been working really well for me, okay? So the last thing I'm going to touch on is going to be overall, I guess it'll be kind of two sections. I know I really explain a lot of these. I really go into really big detail, but I want to keep it a bit shorter. That's kind of my goal, is to keep these videos a bit shorter. It's just planning ahead, okay? So this is going to be the second last part, planning ahead, okay? So planning ahead is not going to be something I'm going to have to explain a lot of the time, but it's a lot of you might get stuck with, again, I'll tell you guys my experience, but a lot of you guys might get stuck with something called analysis paralysis. Okay, analysis paralysis is where you start getting to your head like, oh, should I door knock here? Oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. And all of a sudden, an hour or two goes by, and it's already like 5 o'clock, and you're like, oh, I gotta make dinner soon, and it's like, I have an appointment at 7 p.m. I shouldn't be door knocking. If you get analysis paralysis, guys, you're really shooting yourself in the foot. So that comes to planning ahead. And planning ahead is targeting these areas. I was just telling you, you want to do this on your off time or during your admin time to target neighborhoods that you can go to, like I was just explaining for those, your farm area, where you're going to go. Like it all comes down to planning ahead, okay? The way you're going to get stuck in analysis paralysis is just simply by not planning ahead, okay? So you want to, like, this all comes down to planning out your week and making sure that you're certain on where you're going to go, okay? Because honestly, as the year starts getting longer, some people start to lose interest, and then they start going like, oh, should I be even door knock? Should I do this? Have a plan. Make sure you have it in your calendar to meet your farm area a certain number of times every single year. And then also be 100% certain on where you're going to be door knocking outside of that, right? If you're doing expireds, okay, keep your focus on expireds, make a list every single week. If you have an assistant, which I do, have her send them a map of expireds and you can go meet them, right? If you're in the States, for example, right? If you're like me and you can't door knock expireds, have your focus set on certain neighborhoods, and just the second it's time to prospect, you're done with everything, go right to those areas, right? You will not waste a lot of time, and you're going to get the best benefits that way, okay? Because when I was starting and I didn't really have an exact focus on where I needed to be my first about 6 months, I was wasting a lot of time getting stuck where I needed to be, and that was one of the things I was getting tied up on, okay? So always have that plan, keep your farm area, and then if you're not in your farm area, if you're doing, again, the other door knocking, have that plan to knock in certain areas. But that goes to my fourth and final point, which is you can door knock anywhere. Okay, there's opportunities everywhere. I have met some of my craziest transactions from literally the doors I least expected. Guys, there is fruit in every single neighborhood. Don't get too caught up on where you gotta go. If you're ever short on time, or it's like maybe you have like a spare hour, doesn't matter like if it's maybe the neighbors have already told you, oh yeah, no one's gonna be moving from here. Guess what? Maybe all of a sudden the neighbors don't know someone's gonna be dying in the next 6 months and they're gonna have to sell, right? There's fruit in every single area, and you got to reap the benefits of that. So don't get too stuck up on like, oh, where do I door knock? It helps clear the analysis paralysis. You can find opportunities literally anywhere. Your next door neighbor could be selling for all you know, right? The point is, every single neighborhood has someone who needs to sell, and that's a key. Someone who needs to sell. Not someone who wants to sell, not someone who's thinking about it. No, it's someone who needs to sell, and that's exactly who you need to work with right now, okay? So that's really going to be a wrap for today's video. I hope that helps, and I really hope this kind of clears the confusion on where you should be door knocking, because what I just gave to you guys should be more than enough to make sure you have a plan moving into 2026 where you need to be door knocking, and where you're going to ultimately reap the benefits of where you need to go. Okay, we'll see you guys in the next one. Happy New Year, and hope you guys have some good success moving to 2026, as I am definitely expecting that myself. Okay, see you in the next one. Peace.